Hi, BookTube. Hello. We're going to do a tag today, but a tag with an agenda, I guess. Let me just get to the point. We're going to do the reader's profile tag. Now, that tag was created by, let me just check my notes because I've forgotten the name. It's Hillary B. Green, and I was tagged probably way back in the summer by Talia at Talia Nerds Out. So she's probably thinking, that girl's never going to do my tag. I'm doing it today. But what I'm going to do, because I have some news, some bits of news, is I'm going to use the questions because they just happen to dovetail nicely with some things that I want to let you know anyway. So it's all going to work out beautifully. Yeah, you'll see. So we're going to go straight into question one, which is, what for you makes a good book? Now, I hate to be a rebel, but you know what I'm like sometimes with questions. I tend to go, no, not that question. That's not really a great question. Let's ask a different question. And I do. I want to turn this one on its head because I think it's more of an effective question turned on its head. So what I'm going to ask myself is, what is it that doesn't make a good book for me? What really, I don't know, doesn't spoil a book. There's nothing that really spoils a book, but there are things that put me off, that I don't have the same quality of experience when I read the book. And in fiction, and we're only talking about fiction now, my experience is lessened by the way the author chooses to make a point, by how didactic they are. Lots of books want to teach something or get over a moral point or give representation. And where a novel is really good at this, you almost don't notice it. You read the book, the story is so compelling that you fail to notice that this is going on. And it's often not until after you finish the book sometimes that you realize that the themes of the book, that you go back to characters' actions and their words and the way things were constructed, and you can see the point being made. And those books are the best. But I do find, and it tends to be more with recently published books, and I think it's just a cultural trend, that the way a moral point is got across or the way that representation is put into a book feels, I can't explain it. It's like you can tell that the writer sat down while they were in the planning stages and they said, right, I need to write a book that opposes capitalism and colonialism and has queer representation, and great goals. The problem is, I wish I could put my finger on exactly what I mean, but as I'm reading, it's like I can see behind the magician's the curtain or the smoke screen, or it's like seeing the Wizard of Oz, it's just a little man behind it. You can see the behind the workings as you're reading the book. You can go, there's the point at which you want to do the representation thing. There's the point at which you want me to remember that capitalism causes a lot of harm. And there's the point where you want me to, and it's obvious in a way that actually pulls me out of the story while I go, tick your boxes there. I could see if you had an outline, that was the point where you thought, yeah, did that. And I wish I even had an example of a book that I've read where I could say, here, do you see, this is how the author handled it. And we're in agreement on this point, it's great, but because of the way it's done, because it's slightly awkwardly done, it just makes the author more visible and their intentions more visible. And of course, I think I've said in previous videos, I like it when the author is invisible, when I can't tell that they're there. I'm so lost in the illusion of story that I've forgotten that this is actually some text that somebody sat down and planned and wrote. Question 2 then is, what are you currently reading? I'm not really so interested in telling you that because you're going to get a review. I'm reading a Fanny Flagg novel, not Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe, which is her big important book, but another one. And you'll learn about that because I should finish it before the end of January. After that, I want to start something quite special, and I'm going to hold it up to the camera now because no one will probably have heard of this book. That's kind of exciting. Here we go. It is called The Tangled Mane by Charlie Tyler. Now, it is a detective mystery novel, possibly cozy I'm not yet sure because I haven't read it, but let me tell you how it came to me, because I didn't purchase it, I didn't borrow it, I didn't see somebody else reading it and said, hey, that's a cool book, can I look at that? The office that I work in used to be the offices of a local paper. A lot of UK local papers have closed. So since 2018, the building has had a completely different use. I go into the office about once a week to open the post. And last week, this book arrived in the post along with an accompanying press release from the publisher. There we go, hold that up. And it's telling me that it's a novel set in the Welland Valley in Market Harborough, which is about 20 miles from where we're recording the video. So I thought this was cool. This is a local new author, published her first detective mystery, and she's sending it out to the local paper to see if they'll do a review on it. And I thought, wow, and there's no paper anymore. But I thought, never mind. I think even with my small subscriber numbers and viewer numbers, I still think that what I can give Charlie Tyler is a review with an audience about as big as you might get in a local paper on one given week. Because my review, once I put it up, it can be viewed again and again and again for months. And so it can garner a much bigger audience over time. So I got in touch with, it was Debbie, her publicity person here, Debbie Elliott, emailed her and said, hey, look, the book has come here, but here is no longer the local paper offices. But I've got a BookTube channel, and I gave her the link, and I said I'd be happy to read it and talk about it on video so that people can get to know Charlie's book a little bit better. And she replied this morning and said, yeah, that would be great. So that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to read next. So look out for that. Question 3. Question 3 is, what is the last book that you didn't finish? Now, I'm going to tell you what I'm failing to do right now. I'm trying and failing to get into audiobooks. And probably I should just not try, because they just don't work for me. I don't get the same pleasure from listening to a book as I get from reading it myself. But there are things that I do, like driving, ironing, washing dishes, and cooking, you know, when you've got your hands sticky or something, and you can't read a book, but I think it'd be so nice to listen to a book. So I've tried to listen to Shuggie Bain by Douglas Stewart, is it? And also the book, what is it? It's not coming to my head. Huckleberry Finn, because I've got James on reserve. And I know people say, oh, you don't need to have read Huckleberry Finn. I thought, no, but I have read Huckleberry Finn once, but ages ago. So I just wanted to listen to it again to refamiliarize my mind with the story, so that, you know, when I get to James, those events will still be fresh, if that makes any sense at all. But I'm afraid I'm just not able to pay attention. So either I get a print copy of Huckleberry Finn, or I just do James by Percival Everett cold when it arrives. That's probably what's going to happen. And question 4, I like it. It says, what obscure book do you wish other people would read? Well, I wish more people would read obscure books. I do. I still think there's too much of a love in BookTube of reading the latest thing and keeping up with the latest thing, when there are so many incredible books, which they've just got older, you know, when there's so many books that it's not that they're bad books. They just get invisible because there's so many new books coming in front of our face, you know, aren't there? There's a channel I really think you should check out, Black Lit Geek. And it's hosted by Brett Bonner, and Brett recently bought about 250 books, which were the personal collection of a man who had died, and his brother was selling them. And he got, I think, the whole lot for something like $40 US. Absolutely incredible price. And so he's going through them like a little treasure trove, just a little stack every time, and he's just pulling them out and looking at them and seeing what have I acquired here for this incredible price. And I'm just loving those videos, because it's an insight into the person, but also the books he's holding up date back to the 50s and 60s. They're, again, they've gone out of visibility, but that doesn't mean they aren't incredibly interesting looking books. And question 5, which is, what is the longest book you have ever read? The longest book I ever read, I am rereading right now, of course. As some people will know, I'm rereading War and Peace, and I'm doing that a chapter a day. because Marion H. did a video where she noted how short the chapters were in War and Peace, and she noted that some people were doing a little project to read a chapter a day because that way you could finish War and Peace in a year. And it's true. There are 361 chapters in War and Peace, and the average length of each chapter is only, it's less than 4 pages, 3.75. So very, very doable. And I have been doing it. In fact, I'm going to put up on screen right now my the Excel spreadsheet I created, because finance people, we love our spreadsheets. And this is my spreadsheet that I'm doing to keep a record of my reading. And you can see I've reached 115 pages already. I've finished part 1 of book 1. And it has been no trouble at all. I've been able to do other reading, prepare YouTube content, all that stuff. And yet in the background, War and Peace is just steadily getting read. I do want to say, War and Peace, the first 115 pages, is a lovely, almost chick lit, gossipy, upper class. It has a Jane Austenness to it because you're just hanging around very rich people and learning about their problems, which are never really quite the same problems as poorer people. So it's light, I guess is what I'm trying to say. If anybody thinks, oh, War and Peace, all these big Russian authors, there are Russian authors who are much heavier reading. Tolstoy himself was well off. He was a member of the aristocracy. So he gives you the view from up on high. Dostoevsky, Chekhov, and others, they weren't well-off men. So their books focus at a lower level of Russian society. They are much heavier going. That's not to say that one book is better than the other, but it's just to say, if you are thinking, ooh, Tolstoy, War and Peace, oh my goodness, what a heavy, heavy book. It is not a heavy book. It's very light. What I'm also going to show you now is the page where I'm keeping track in the same Excel spreadsheet, keeping track of all the characters. And that's fantastic because I can sort it by surname and I can add additional notes, not just that so-and-so is the son of so-and-so, but if things happen in the book to that particular character that are significant, but I'm likely to forget because it's going to take me a year to read the book, this is where I record it. So I know exactly what page in the book I first met this character, who's related to who, that the essential sort of family information, but also other things, whether they have a particular title, whether they're writing letters to another character or having an affair with another character or engaged to be married to someone, etc., or exiled by the Tsar. These little details are really, really important. So I've added them too. I'm having a great time with this, by the way. So if anybody is thinking, how can I tackle a big, long work of 19th century fiction? This is the way to do it. This will be painless. You will be able to read other books, so it won't feel so heavy and burdensome. I'm just having a great time. That's all I'm saying. Question 6. It says, if you could have a dinner party with 5 fictional characters, who would they be? Well, let me just make one point absolutely clear. If I get to the end of my life and I have never had a dinner party or been invited to a dinner party, that'll be fine with me, okay? It's never happened so far. I do not like them. I do not like formal dining experiences. They take all the joy out of the food. So let's talk about this. Any fictional characters that are going to come round to my place, right? This is what's going to happen. I want them to show up in their favorite old shirt, jeans, and trainers that look like they've been walked in, right? I just want to see clothes that you're comfortable in, and you come over and I'd whip up some brownies and some pizza dough the night before, and I'd brew some coffee on the day, maybe get a bottle of red wine, and that'd be it. And it'd be sort of a drop-in thing. So I wouldn't do dinner party. I'd have the house open from like 1 p.m. until 9 p.m. Come and go as you please. Stay for a little bit, stay for longer, whatever. Eat food, don't eat food. I don't care. Just stop around for a chat. And that would be how I'd want to meet anybody. Never mind 5 fictional characters. Hard though, because the fictional characters I really liked reading about, I don't really want them to come around, okay? That said, Myra Breckenridge, she would show up whether I invited her or not, because she's that kind of character. So I'd probably just have to allow for her to be in my house, but I'd be uncomfortable the whole time she was there. Then there's Harold from Matt Crowley's The Boys in the Band. I mean, I'd invite him, but not expect him to show up. And then if he showed up, I'd be uncomfortable, just like I was with Myra. Let's see. This is really hard. Doreen. Doreen is the maid in Moliere's Tartuffe. And she seems a very down-to-earth person, and I think she would like to just come around for some cake and pizza and coffee. I think she'd go for that kind of thing. And the only other two characters I could think of were Lisbeth Salander and Michael Blomqvist from The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. They also seemed like just really down-to-earth, solid characters with hearts of gold, even if they had other flaws. I thought, yeah, I'd have them come round. I think that makes 5, doesn't it? I hope so. Question 7 says, what 5 books would you take with you if you were stranded on a desert island? Oh, it doesn't really matter, because I wouldn't survive long enough on a desert island to read very much. But for the sake of argument, because this is a fantasy island, so maybe I suddenly become stronger and more self-sufficient, and I know how to kill things properly, which I wouldn't be able to do now. But let's say, okay, it'd have to be like literary anthologies, because I'd have to find a way to keep my reading broad as possible, because I couldn't just take one author's books. I'd be bored. I would take Shakespeare. That would be a definite, right? There'd be a complete anthology of Shakespeare's work. That would go in. But after that, I think I'd want broad sort of surveys of various countries' literature. So maybe I'd take, I don't know, Russian, American, English, what else? Russian in translation. I hope I don't have to say that. I don't know about French. I've not yet sort of warmed up to French literature too much. So I don't know what I do after. Definitely those 3, maybe Japanese. I don't know. But there'd be 4 other sort of surveys of literature. So I would get lovely samplings of different things, short fiction and bits of longer fiction. I think that would satisfy me. And question 8 said, name a book that you just not could. I'm doing well with these questions today. Name a book that you just could not put down. I just have to slow down. Get excited doing tags because they're more casual, and then I triple over my words. But there's loads of contenders for this, but I'll name one. Ken Follett, The Pillars of the Earth, which is a 1,000-page book. I borrowed it from someone thinking, wow, I wonder when I'll be able to give it back to them. And then I just flew through it. It did not feel like 1,000 pages. It felt like 1/10 of that. And before you know it, I think 2 weeks it took me to read it, because that's how much I wanted to, and gave it back to the other person. And they were a bit surprised. They were like, wow, they'd liked it, but they didn't like it quite as much as me. I think they took more like a month, but no problem. I just whooshed through it. The only thing with Ken Follett was he had this obsession with eye color, and here we go. One pet peeve I have. Authors, nobody cares about a character's eye color, right? Do you remember the eye colors of most of your friends? No, you don't. Or even your enemies? No, you don't. No. Other things, but not eye color. So eye color, and especially because he had one character with purple eyes. Well, please introduce me to a human being on this planet who actually has purple eyes, especially in the 1200s. It's not like they could go out and buy some colored contact lenses. But anyway, I still enjoyed the book. That shows you, in spite Ken Follett's thing about eye color and his character with the purple eyes, I nevertheless loved that book and found it really hard to stop reading it. And question 9 is 5 books or authors that I will never read. Never is a really strong word for me, along with always, because I'm too unpredictable. I don't know if I could say never, but let's first of all talk about another channel that I really think you should subscribe to. It's a new booktuber. It's Andy, and his channel is called Really Random Reads. And I love that he did a video the other day where he's talking about Bram Stoker's Dracula. And he was saying, you know how that first 40 pages of Dracula, how incredibly intense they are with the contact with the character. And that's what I want to say. If there's ever a book I would never reread, it will be Bram Stoker's Dracula. And that's simply because the first 40 pages utterly terrified me. This is why I can't do horror. I was absolutely petrified when I finished that. I had to actually leave the book for a little while before going on to read the rest. If I'd have known what the rest was like, I wouldn't have paused. But it was because I needed like post-traumatic disorder syndrome counseling after the first 40 pages of Dracula. Not really. It wasn't that bad, but it really did frighten me. So I probably wouldn't reread that book. But other than that, I really couldn't think of a never, except some of these big fantasy series now. where it's 4, 5, 6, 7 books, and they're all big bricks. It's just, the kind of reader I am, right? I have to jump about. I need variety. And so a series like that, I think it would get me down. I think I would just think, another book, same author, same story, same characters. I would be tempted to cheat. I know what I'd do. I might read the first book, get into the second, and then be looking around at my other books on the shelves and thinking, oh, so many other different books. I want to read different books. And I know what would happen. I'd neglect that author. So I think it's better if I don't, because I'm going to get bored long before the series, before I even get decently into it. I have read the odd trilogy, but I mean, it really is a rare thing for me to get to want to read more than one book by one author in sequence. That's just me. And final question is, if you were to write a book, what would it be about? Well, I have written a book. I've written several books. I don't talk about them much on here because I don't, they're not published, by the way, because you're thinking, okay. They're all speculative or fantastic in one way or another. One of them was about a young man who found a box of glass negatives in an antique store. And then it was sort of the fantastical element was that by working with these negatives and developing new photographs from them, he was able somehow to contact the spirit, the essence of the woman whose negatives they were. Her soul kind of inhabited the glass plates, and that helped him with something that was going on in his life. You can tell how little. This was back in early 2000s. That's the last time I looked at the manuscript, and I was just thinking I have it in Dropbox somewhere. I just have to dig down through all the folders and find it. But actually, just pause a second. Be right back. Okay, I found the manuscript. Now, I haven't read this since. I can't see a date because I moved it from one laptop to another. So the date on the file is the date it got moved. So it doesn't really give me a good idea, but I think I wrote this in the early 2000s, right? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to read you a few paragraphs, first page, chapter 1, because this feels like new writing to me. This is like reading a new book. So here we go, everybody. Just to say, it's a first-person narration by a character whose name is Polly. She's an older woman. Here we go. Sleep is a surrender of consciousness with expectations. I expect, now and again, to wake myself with my own snoring. I expect to need at least one visit to the toilet. I expect to dream. When I wake, I expect to find the covers twisted round my legs and my nightie rolled up to my arms, leaving my back exposed. I expect to find my glasses, teeth, and pillbox on the bedside table exactly as Laura leaves them. Sometimes I wake without opening my eyes, though typically I see light coming through the window as a glow on the underside of my closed lids, and I'm tempted to guess the time and peek at my baby bell to see if I'm right. I wake too early for an old woman. But if I tell myself to rest longer, the quality of sleep is not the same. It becomes more like waiting mainly for the hiss and bang of my central heating, which never keeps me as warm as quilts and blankets, but must suffice. I wasn't prepared for any other kind of awakening. Imagine how it felt one night. I regained consciousness, but could see only darkness, black as liquid Brunswick and perfectly silent. I thought my eyes had glued fast with sleep. After several bouts of concentration, I was forced to admit there didn't seem to be any eyes that I could open. I certainly couldn't feel any. I couldn't feel. And finally, of course, there's the tagging some people bit. I don't really know. This is such an old tag. Maybe loads of people did it back in the summer. Meg at Books Off the Beaten Path, if you have not done the reader profile tag and you want to do it, go for it. Absolutely. After that, I think I'm just going to do the thing that people do, where they say, if you're watching this right now and you like these questions, and you thought, I wish someone would tag me because I have good answers to these questions. You're tagged right now. Go ahead, do your video. Mention me because I'll come watch it. I love doing that. It's cool. Okay, everybody, that is it. I know I was supposed to do a fiction review for you. I tell you the reason I haven't. Georgie has invited me to come hang out at her place, eat Chinese food and catch up. And you know what? I'm always going to say yes to that. So if you don't mind, if you could just wait until this time next week, there'll be a fiction review for you. Okay, everybody. Take care in the meantime. Bye-bye.